So the Theragun is maybe one of the most popular recovery devices that's really come into the public display over the last 5 to 10 years now. I know nothing about the history of this incredible product,
Really?
other than guessing that it may have some sort of foundation in power tools. So how did the Theragun come to be, Jason?
Yeah, that's funny you see that. A lot of people see that. Anyone that's worked with power tools can see that. It's just a lie. In 2007, I was in a motorcycle accident in Los Angeles. I'm a practicing chiropractor, and it messed me up pretty good. I T-boned the side of a Volkswagen Jetta going 55 miles an hour. And I had a lot of soft tissue damage in my neck and upper body, my shoulder, my arms.
Wait, you T-boned, did you fly over the car?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Broke my helmet. I was unconscious on the freeway for a few minutes. Got up and, I wasn't bleeding. I didn't break bones or anything. So when the ambulance came, I was like, no, I'm fine. We could talk about that for another podcast, but I had a whole concussion. It was a whole thing. But what I realized is as I was going through this, suddenly I was a patient. I'd never really been a patient before. I was super healthy when I grew up. I didn't really have any sort of season-ending injuries or anything. I played a lot of sports, excelled in a lot, wrestling and soccer and rugby. But I always had friends that were injured, shoulders and knees and stuff, but I never got to that point. So suddenly I was like, wait, how do you deal with this? I knew kind of what I needed. I knew what was going on with my body, but the fact that I had to wait for someone else to treat me and then drive somewhere and wait and then just that whole process. And I'd go to my practice and I would wait for my business partner to adjust me, and I'm sitting in the room and I'm processing what I need. And I'm thinking, man, if I could just do this to myself. But basically it came down to this idea of like staying out of pain. Like, how can I stay out of pain? Because the pain is what was causing the problems. A couple of days would go by and I'd go see my guy again at my practice, and I was so inflamed that he couldn't really do anything. So that his treatments were keeping me out of pain and inflammation rather than really treating me for the problem. So that started clicking in my head, and I was like, what do other people do? Like, how are they dealing with this? And I'm a chiropractor, and I use this metaphor a lot, but these are my hands are my eyes. And I started to go blind because I started to not feel with these hands because the nerve was being impinged in my arm and down my hand. So I couldn't feel my fingers and my thumb. And that scared me. So I was like, wait, what? I've done all this sacrifice. I built everything I can't see, basically. So I was sitting in one of my practice, in one of our clinic rooms, and I was thinking to myself, how can I make this pain stop? There was a vibrating table sitting next to me that we would put patients on to do traction. And I was like, well, I wonder why that vibrates. Oh, and then I started thinking like, oh, it does this and this. And then I thought, I wonder if that'll actually help with my pain or the tension that I'm feeling. So I just slid the chair over the table, and I raised the table and rested my arm on the table and clicked it on. And for the first 30 seconds, Trey, it was like heaven. I melted like, oh man, I hadn't had that relief for a long time. When nerves are impinged, muscles cramp, it's like your light switch is not working. The light just kind of flutters. Well, that's what was going on in my nervous system, not only just in my shoulder and neck, but in my whole body. I mean, my calves were cramping. So this thing was like, wait a minute, what is that? He comes in and treats me, and so that was sticking with me. Long story short, we had something in the office that I used. It's called a vibrocussor that was smaller that I could take home. So I was taking this table home now. Like, I had this thing with me that I could do something with. After a couple of days, it wouldn't work. Our body accommodates to information. That's how we live in this world, right? So I mentioned as I was walking in here, that's climate control. Is it cold or is it hot outside? You never know. But your body has to accommodate to that. If you put a wedding ring on, you're not thinking about that all day. A watch or jewelry or something, your body's not aware of that all day because it accommodates to that. It's not threatening. It's not scary. So your body takes that information, puts it down in the lower hierarchy, and pays attention to the most important things. For me at the time was pain. And so my body was accommodating to this, I'll call it soft tissue treatment that I was using with this vibration tool, because I realized there was no amplitude. So it was touching the body the whole time, which made it easier for my body to accommodate to that. So as I'm processing this, I'm like, wait a second. What if I had something that didn't touch my body the whole time, but vibrated or had a frequency to it. So I was thinking, I'll just make one. So I just went to my garage, to your point. I grabbed a Makita jigsaw and I made the very first Theragun. I bent the blade, wrapped a dish towel around the blade. This is like 3 a.m. I'm like dying. I don't care what you call it or what color it is. Wrapped a dish towel, wrapped electrical tape, bless you, around the end of it. And I started using it on my body. And as I was using it on my body, I was testing to make sure that the blade wouldn't go through the rag.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing that it's feeling good. And so I just iterated on that. It went from that to a practice foam golf ball, and then I just started using this thing over and over again, and I was getting better quickly. I was relatively new to the industry, the chiropractic space, and I'd never experienced that process of having someone go through what I was going through and then take them through the whole process. So I was sort of naive to the idea that this is supposed to take 9 to 12 months to get better. I didn't have time. I didn't have that time. Like, I needed to get ready. I needed to get better quick so I could get back to practice and making money. So I wasn't thinking I'm going to make something that's going to change the world or recovery or anything. It was not my plan. Got myself better, went back to practice. I never thought I'd bring it up again, but it was my little secret tool. I mean, I would take it to Venice, Gold's in Venice, and I'd plug it into the wall, and I'd bring my weights over to the wall, and because I started realizing as I went through that process, it went from pain relief to tension relief to recovery. And I went through each one of those processes, just sort of imprinting that on my nervous system because of the experience I was having. I never thought that I would translate that to patients. Back to practice now for 3 to 6 months, I remember. Patient comes into my practice. He had been in a head-on bus collision, and I was looking at his paperwork. He was a bus driver, and he went through the windshield. It was a really messy, but it's kind of the same thing. He had scratches and stuff, but he didn't technically need the hospital. So I'm looking at his intake form, his age, his insurance, his mechanism of injury, his diagnostic studies. I'm kind of going through this, and I'm realizing, wow, this is me again. There's no way this guy's going to get better in 12 visits. There's just not. So I thought, it just hit me. I thought, I have to use that on him. I didn't call it anything at the time. It was just a Makita jigsaw. It's actually a special part of the story because it triggered a lot of this. I took some x-rays. I said, can you please do me a favor and bring your wife with you tomorrow? I have something I think I can help you with because I went through what you're going through, and I think I have a way to sort of streamline this, make it faster. He comes back the next day, brings his wife, and I bring this Makita jigsaw in a Ralph's paper bag, grocery bag, and set it down, pull it out, plug it in, and I just don't say much. I just start using it on him, and he's melting on the table, just like, oh my God, that's amazing. His wife's looking at me like I'm nuts. But basically, he went through the same process, and through that process, you get to know someone really well. I was seeing him every week just so we could spread it out as far as we could, but his job was to keep him out of pain. That empowerment that I had of being able to treat myself, knowing what I needed, I was sort of offloading that onto him through his process. At the end of his treatment, I had been gone for a couple of days to Utah to see my family, and I walked in the practice, and my secretary said, your patient's back in the room, which isn't typical usually. So I thought there was a problem. So I'm walking back, and I hear the machine on, and I turn the corner, and he's sitting on the table, and he had this big smile on his face, and he's like, Doc, this thing saved my life. You have to figure this out. As we've been going through the treatment, I was sharing with him, I don't know what this thing's doing. Like, I just know it works. And so we got to know each other really well. That was the moment. That was kind of when I realized, like, I got to figure this out. There's no one that's crazy enough. There's no one that's thought about this and experienced it like I had. And I just watched this guy get better fast. I have to take this to the world.
It's funny how often innovation, maybe to a lesser degree, and we'll certainly talk about that because the innovation involves making it more suitable for the public and figuring out how to get it to a wider audience. But the invention process so often is a self-serving process.
Right.
And it's not just that way with invention. It's also that way with really getting to understand something better. Like for me, as somebody who's in my mid-40s, I try to take pretty good care of myself now, but that's because I was a fat kid, Jason. And then as an adult, I started to get a little bit sloppy also, and I could feel how that was just weighing me down collectively, physically, of course, but mentally, emotionally, psychologically. And so I got a grip, and I've been much better off as a result since then. Thankfully, I haven't dealt with something catastrophic, but you did, and it led to something that was life-changing for you physically because it allowed you to get back to good health and has now helped so many others as well. Was there a moment or something that allowed this invention to catch fire for you and for Therabody?
Meaning like grow and get it out there? Yeah. For the first few years, so from 2008, which the end of 2008 was when I started working on this guy. So let's say early 2009. When he said that, I started creating different versions. So from 2009 to 2016.
Different versions like attachments, or different versions in terms of completely different
all together,
guns?
like whole new units. Like I just learned as I was going along. I got to a point where I bought 250 Makita Kawasaki jigsaws from Kawasaki, retrofitted them, took them apart. I mean, that's a longer story, but I basically would give those to physical therapists, chiropractors for a discount, quote unquote, and then I would tell them, give me feedback. Like, what would you fix on it? And if it was perfect, what would it look like? And how much would you pay for that? So started giving myself these sort of ideas. In 2014, I had a satellite practice at a place called Unbreakable Performance in Hollywood. Shout out to those guys. And they gave me a little space downstairs in the gym. It was like a small room. It's like, honestly, like this big. I had a table, and I had all my Theraguns down there. And I was treating guys, athletes, NFL, specifically NFL and NHL guys, for injuries. I was just there in case they got injured or wanted to get adjusted or whatever. And I I didn't make the connection that they could use this for performance. So a couple of days I'd come late, and they'd go down in my room and take my Theraguns up on the floor in the gym floor. And at the time, Trey, I was so tunnel focused on going after physical therapists and chiropractors and trainers and strength and conditioning guys, because those were the guys that people listened to. Those were the guys that knew what they were talking about. I didn't have to teach them a lot. These athletes, I thought, what do you know? You don't know what you're doing. And there's several times I'd go up and yell at them, like, don't take my stuff from my room, and this is not your tools. And one day I walked in, and they were all kind of using one doing box jumps. And I'm like, what are they doing? A bunch of names that I could list off that you would recognize.
Or were they loosening up their hip flexors or something?
Yeah, they were doing hamstrings and quads and their hip flexors, and then they'd set it down and jump. And so I'm asking, what are you doing? And they said, well, we actually jump. We can feel we have more spring, more hops to get to. We can actually throw another plate on. I'm thinking, ding, like, oh my God, that's exactly what I'm trying to do in a clinical setting. So that's kind of when it happened. I was like, wait a minute. These guys have the money. They feel what it does to them. I don't even have to sell it to them. So one of them was playing for the New England Patriots at the time. He went back for camp in June of that year. The head trainer called me and said, I need you to bring as many of those as you can to our first preseason game. So I showed up with 20 of these, 22 actually, walked into the lobby of the hotel. It was super secure. They didn't let him in, but me, I walked in with these big canvas sample bags, literally like I was street selling, sat them down, unzipped them, and I sold through those as fast as guys could go to an ATM and grab money. And watching that sort of whole process of like, oh my gosh, I'd spend weeks trying to get one chiro or one physical therapist to trust that they could use it in their practice, learn how to bill for it, understand how to use it. That was a long road. These guys, they didn't care. They bought it, and it was like, I know what to do. I'm taking this home. And there's an element in pro sports, in all sports really, but in pro sports specifically, where you don't really want to talk about your injuries. Mm-hmm. You don't want to tell people. You don't want to tell the team. It has an impact on your contract. And so for a long time, I was a concierge chiro. I'd fly during the week to treat athletes. They'd show up to the game, and they'd play the game, and they'd come back home. There was this element of not letting the team physios know really how bad my ankle sprain was.
I know a chiro here in Austin who, at least up until recently, had done something similar, going around dry needling guys, kind of in the shadows, I guess, of the medical treatment that they're receiving from the team.
Yeah, there's an entire business of that,
Yeah.
and it's smart. But there's also an element to this, Trey, that I think happened for me that wasn't because I made it happen. I just saw this opportunity, but they needed to learn how to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Why are you having me fly all the way out here and loosen your hamstrings? Like, you could do that. Mm-hmm. So that opened up this opportunity for me to get this in their hands. And I wanted them to feel empowered enough that when I wasn't there, that they could get the same benefit. That was early on, this process of being able to like teach a man to fish. Like, I didn't want to have to be that guy all the time. I can't scale that. So I think that was I know that was a big moment for us, because I realized, wow, that was a really important moment. And then the next really big one was when Kyrie was using it on the sideline when they were playing. Cleveland was playing the Warriors in their Game 5. His back stiffened up. I knew the head trainer and the physio for the team really well. In the NBA, you can't take things onto the floor unless it's sanctioned by the NBA, unless the athlete asks for it specifically by name. So Kyrie said, "Bring the Theragun out here. I'm going to need that as we get down to the last parts of the game." Sure enough, he was using it on the sideline, and they'd call timeout, and Kyrie'd go over, and he's just leaning over while they're doing it on his back. And NBC or ABC, whoever it was, kept zooming in on it, like, what is that thing he's using?
Oh, man. What an incredible free advertising for you, the intrigue of wondering what is that thing.
What's that blue thing? Because it was blue at the time, which just popped, because I'd spent a lot of time on that blue. Like, I wanted it to be a certain color blue.
What shade of blue was it?
It was Petty blue, like Richard Petty blue. So it was like this certain color of blue. And I think it's Pantone 241, what it ended up being.
Is that like a lighter, like a former Houston Oilers blue? Like
Yeah,
that sort of blue?
Not quite as baby blue.
Okay.
Yeah, good call. Yeah. But a couple ESPN guys retweeted this, like, hey, what is that? And then they tagged us, and we sold out that weekend.
Oh, man.
It was 3,000 units or something. It was crazy. And that moment, we call it the Kyrie moment.
Yeah.
And then we just had one recently with Saquon, using it on the sideline for the playoffs. He's goes out and runs a touchdown, comes back and uses the mini on the sideline. I couldn't have planned that. But I also kind of did. Like, I wanted this to seed this with these guys, but more importantly, I wanted them to know how it felt to add it to their routine. And once they get that, you can't take it away.
Well, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, as the old saying goes. And you had obviously worked hard and kind of tweaked and tinkered and figured out and gone from one prospective audience to another. So that learning process built up to two incredibly special moments for the company. So
yeah,
that's great to hear.
Yeah, that's great.
A cool story.
That's how it kind of really blew up in the sports world, and then it spilled into Europe and Premier League, and then it just caught wildfire.
Okay, so you guys are international.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah.
Every country on the planet.
70 or so, give or take. It kind of depends on tariffs and taxes and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there some general rules that you have for people when you're instructing them on how to use the Theraguns for themselves? Because I'll be honest with you, Jason, sometimes I play a lot of beach volleyball.
Oh, wow.
I see guys bringing it out to the court sometimes, and I'm like, I feel like you are flirting with disaster right now because you don't totally understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to call it a power tool, but it is a powerful tool that if you use it incorrectly, it can cause problems potentially. So what are some of the basic rules that you have others operate on when you're telling them how to use the Theragun?
That's a great question, Trey. People usually don't ask that because it gets into the nuances of it, but that's really important. We have a lot of science and research that validates the protocols, but we have basically 3 sort of areas that you would use the product. We call it prepare, perform, and recover. So the preparation is a process that you go through. I call it 10-10-10 or 30 seconds per muscle group. So you do 10 seconds cross fiber on the origin of a muscle. You do 10 seconds cross fiber on the insertion of a muscle. And then you do 10 seconds with the belly of the muscle. So in the sort of the line with the muscle.
So let's take the quad, for instance, just
Yeah.
so I can try and help
Yeah.
people visualize.
Yeah.
So you go
So
across
you're
the quad.
you're gonna start on insertion,
Okay.
and it I think the easiest way to say it is it's near the joints.
Okay.
Muscles attach at joints.
Oh, you want to be near the attachments the entire time,
Yes.
not on the face
Not
of
on the
muscle.
quad. Yep, you're not in the belly of the muscle.
Interesting.
So that to prepare is, I'll go through this quickly. Prepare is, I take the Theragun and I'm applying about a pound of pressure. You're not jamming this into your muscle. That's one of the things that I see people doing. They think more pressure is better. It's not the case, especially when you're preparing the nervous system, because it's a neuromuscular treatment device. Think about it that way. I'm talking to your nervous system just as much as I'm talking to your muscles and blood flow. Mm-hmm. Frequencies, the amplitude, all our science is kind of built into that. So you take Theragun cross fiber, so you're going to go back and forth from medial to lateral, back and forth that way. You're not going up and down. Mm-hmm. Cross fiber across in your hip flexors, which is basically your origin of your quadriceps. Yep. Then you go down just above your knee, which is the insertion of your quadriceps. Mm-hmm. You're going to go back and forth there for 10 seconds. It's not long.
Okay.
10, and now I'm going to go up and down with the muscle fibers for 10 seconds.
All right.
That activates your Golgi tendon. Your Golgi tendon is this sort of jellyfish-like fascia that sits over the top of a muscle and connects to the joints. And it tells your body whether or not you're ready. You've played sports. You kind of know, you're like, okay, I'm ready. There's something that happens where you're like, all right, I'm good, I'm safe. I'm not going to be an idiot. I'm not going to pull a quad or a hamstring or a shoulder. Like, you kind of know. And I've watched this happen so many times with athletes. This puts your body in that state. So if you're going to do beach volleyball, you're up and down. How many squats are you doing? And how many steps do you take in a beach volleyball? So it's lower extremities and maybe your shoulders and arms. So it's going to take you 8 minutes to warm up to where you can now stretch and run and do lateral movements and kind of get your body in check where you are. So we have prepare, perform. Now you have a break. You got, timeout or whatever fault. You got to sit down, grab some water. At IMG Academy and a lot of these other teams we work with, we want our Theraguns by the water. We want them to hydrate and Theragun at perform. Perform is between your sets, between your runs, between your games, at halftime, whatever that is. Performing, you're just going to do 15 seconds on the muscle belly. So you don't have to think about it. You go over, grab your water, swig, take the Theragun, muscle belly on your quad, hamstring, calf. You're ready to go. You're just pushing the blood flow through, facilitating lymphatic drainage, which is where a lot of the lactic acid builds up. This kind of gets into the last one I'll tell you in a second. And that's 15 seconds. So enough time to catch your breath. You're hitting your legs, especially if you're doing something like that. Like playing in the sand is tough. And you get burnout. Your legs are quiet, especially if you have a long set, right? So then recover is 2 minutes or more softly on all the muscle groups you just used. And the reason I say 2 minutes or more is I found out the hard way that when I use Theragun for too long on an athlete, it actually downregulates their nervous system and turns on their parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest, not perform. Mm-hmm. So those were some of the things that I learned. I can get into the details of it, but it's prepare, perform, recover. And if you use it the right way, which is what you saw Saquon doing, he was doing a specific part of his leg that was going to loosen up the calf. He wasn't doing the muscle belly. So you're getting me on a little soapbox here, but that's super important.
Well, we can get super nerdy here because what you were just talking about with not doing it for too long, especially when you're in the middle of performing, is a similar concept to doing long static stretches versus ballistic stretching. Like you don't want to do long static stretches because it's essentially going to put your body or that muscle group or your entire body to sleep. So it's the same thing with the Theragun.
Exactly. Yeah.
What are some of the other tools out there that you consider important to performance but also recovery? Because there's a toolbox that hopefully folks who are paying close attention to these things use. What are some of the other things that you really enjoy with your process of recovery and just maintaining a certain level of feeling good?
If you look at our brand, that's basically what we've built. We built a kit. In Europe and Premier League, they call it a kit. How's your kit? But That's really what it is. And I just did this. I was at the NFL Combine a couple weeks ago, and I laid all the products out, and I was showing a couple of the guys. I wanted them to see it with their eyes. Mm-hmm. There's a good, better, best. So the most fundamental kit should be a Theragun and our jet boots and a mini to kind of go along with that.
Jet boots.
Our jet boots is the pneumatic compression. The boots you pull on your leg, it squeezes your legs.
That's you guys also.
Yeah. So we have something called Recovery Air, and ours are jet boots. They're the first wireless, Bluetooth connected. We were super ahead of everyone with that technology. But the kit basically is, what can I provide for you that's going to give you it? I want to downregulate your nervous system. Mm-hmm. You can upregulate it with all the things you do. I don't need to teach you how to do that, but I need to show you how to downregulate. So we have a kit. The ideal kit to me would be jet boots, Theragun, smart goggles. I'll tell you what those are in a second. Recovery Therm back. And we're coming up with some other things for the chest and shoulders. So if you're in a zero gravity chair, we have what we call our vibroacoustic Therabody lounger. So ideally, athletes, we've done this to some athletes and put it in their house, where you have this vibroacoustic lounger that's a zero gravity lounger that plays the same frequencies that you're hearing. So you plug your headphones into the chair, tune it in. We have a software called Theramind that actually has binaural beats and certain frequencies that help you upregulate or downregulate your nervous system. So now you're listening to something that you're feeling. That's super powerful for your nervous system. Whether you're trying to get excited, think about a concert, you're feeling the thump and the frequency of that music, and you can't help, even if it's like, Kenny G, or I'm dating myself when I say that, or, whoever that rock band is, so it's the same feeling. So you have the chair. Now I'm going to put the boots on, and the boots are pneumatic compression, squeezing your legs. And if you wear that for 30 minutes, it's like you walked 2 miles. And it's not the walking part, but it's the blood flow movement. So you have a little button on the bottom of your foot that we've actually triggered, and now it's triggering the venous system to actually move the blood through your body. You're getting such great recovery. Our new jet boots now have red light in them. So now you have red light going on your full lower extremities with the jet boots and vibration. And those just alone are amazing. But I want to get as much as I can. Effective and efficient were the things that I was always looking for. So those are effective. Now I'm going to have the boots on. I'm in the lounger. I have a Recovery Therm back, which is now LED with vibration and heat on your back. Smart goggles, and that has pneumatic compression, which is basically pressure points on your eyes. So you have meridians, acupuncture pressure points that kind of deal with your intestines, your stomach, that are above and below your eyes, temples, and then your third eye. So it sort of rotates through that area. It gives you the most amazing massage you've ever had. It has heat and vibration. So now you've got the goggles on. Super important your eyes are closed, because when your eyes are closed, our body's heart rate lowers on an average of 8 to 10 points, which just that is going to downregulate their nervous system. If someone wants the perfect kit at their house, you have to start off with a Theragun, because that does your whole body. It's passive and active. You can use it right before you go to sleep, because we have a sleep protocol. We learned that Theragun can actually help you sleep better. The sleep scores get better. We actually have a partnership with Garmin right now, and that sleep was our starting point. And now we're getting into more biometrics and being able to measure things and be a little bit more bespoke on what you need. That's a kind of a different thing. We call it Coach by Therabody. It's in our app. But I think to answer your question, the most important thing is a Theragun, in my opinion. I'm not being biased, but I am. And the next thing is boots. Then you add the Recovery Therm back, and you add in the goggles. We also have a red light mask that has vibration points around those same areas of your eye, and then on the sutures of your skull, which is sending really important signals to your nervous system about how you can downregulate your nervous system. Anyone's had a head massage, you know what I'm talking about? It's just like it does something to your body. So if someone had all of those things, I'm not going to say when people have those things, it's a life changer, because you now understand, if you've ran or lifted weights or played volleyball, and you're in your mind thinking, I'm going to be sore tomorrow. You just kind of know, I've done this enough. I'm going to be sore tomorrow. But if you have that kit at your house, you're not afraid to go hard. You're not afraid to push it a little bit further than you normally do because you have the tools to go back. It's instead of, I can't afford to see a massage therapist this week. I don't have time for that. I don't want to go see my physio. It's that, to me, that's what we're trying to figure out, is how do we get that into your hands so that you're empowered to take care of yourself.
You probably just hinted at this, but actually I know you just hinted at it, but perhaps there's a more or a deeper answer here. But the Theragun is already a very good product, but in order to stay at the top, you always have to be willing to innovate or evolve, even if in little ways. Like the foundation is there, but there are always tweaks can be made. So what are you currently working on to make this great product even better? Specific to the Theragun, not everything else that you just mentioned.
Well, I call it the G6, which is our Pro Plus, is our 14th Theragun. And in my life, it's almost 18 that I've made. When anyone does anything that long and does the research that I've been doing over the years, whether it's a science team, a college, you start to iterate and realize what you can do. And at the same time, Trey, you know what's so cool is in my life with Theragun, I've watched everything evolve from red light therapy to heat therapy to the materials you use. It's evolved. And so when I made the first G1, that was our first mass to market product, I wanted red light on the front of it. I wanted to be able to put red light on a patient while I was treating them, because I have to set that down and use something else to do red light. And man, they would work so much better together because I'll increase blood flow. So at the time, our engineers were like, what are you talking about? That's not even possible. To get red light, you have to have these big lamps, but now you can get red light in your watch. It's like we're always evolving, always listening to our customers. I spend a lot of my time, and this is probably things people don't realize, traveling the world, meeting with the very best physical therapists, body workers, chiropractors, and athletes. And I want to know, how does this fit in your life? What are you looking for? Does it work? Is the battery life long enough? Is there a real therapeutic dose to what I'm telling you there is? So that educates us. We're working on a G7, and there are things that we've done in the past that we took away that I think we need to add. And there's just little tweaks now. It was a big jump from our G1 to G2, a big jump from G2 to G3, relatively G4, G5. G5 was lighter, quieter, but it didn't have red light. It was still a little clunky on the Bluetooth connection. So we changed that on the G6, which is our Pro Plus, launched a Prime Plus. Our story of evolution and innovation hasn't stopped. It's literally what I'm doing every day. We're finding new things, new ways. Do we add that in? So I call my team. Tim specifically is our science guy. Like, is there science for this? Have you ever heard of this before? Can we do this? We added a cold attachment. Learned that some of the NBA players were actually using the cold attachment on the palms of their hands because there's science about how that helps them perform. Interesting. Okay, noted. See if there's something we can do with that. I think the part that helps our brand is that we have these tentacles into high performance that teaches us how do you make a 1% difference in an athlete's life. And then we take that and disseminate that to the rest of the world. That's kind of our plan.
That's fascinating. All right, last question now, Jason. What do you love about the Theragun?
That I can take it anywhere I want. That's the best part, that I don't have to go without it. Travels with me everywhere I go. I have one over there in the bag.
That's a great, simple answer. Jason, thank you so much for the time today. For people who are maybe interested in finding out more, website, socials, anything else that you want to share right now?
Therabody.com. We just redid our website. Really proud of what we've done there. Made it a much more enjoyable experience. Instagram is Therabody. I'm at Dr. Jason Wersland. If anyone's listening and I'll tell you this, I'd like to say this. If anyone's listening and you have awesome stories about how Theraguns changed your life, I love hearing those. it makes all this hard work and sacrifice worth it. So hit me up with those.
You lead by example because yours is a fascinating one as well. Thank you so much for the time today.
Yeah, thanks, Trey.